Don't you fucking dare.
Pianos? And they're like, yes.
Watching you on Instagram is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh shit. How am I going to fit more here?
Was your point here to just make me feel like shit?
This is trash. Like I was like, how is this good?
I know exactly what you're saying. I don't even know what to say.
Why?
It's the most insane thing I've ever heard.
Why?
It's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life.
Why?
It's just insane.
It's amazing.
Fuck that, we're gonna get it done.
How was Black Friday?
Well, we're not quite at Black Friday yet. We're Black Friday week.
Right.
I was 2 years ago. If this was me, I would have been like completely hopped up on Adderall, haven't slept in like a few weeks, and now that I'm doing software and not direct to consumer stuff, I'm a lot more relaxed. But we launched like we didn't launch a Black Friday deal last year just because it felt like a distraction. But this year, I mean, to be fair, we weren't planning on launching a Black Friday deal. I thought of it at noon yesterday, and by 5 we had it out. And we're just selling essentially add-ons at like a steep discount. So it's going well. We launched it this morning. Go to Monday. I know you always launch like a pretty big Black Friday deal. I'm pretty sure I was playing with like your website today. You can like save like $460,000.
You can get on it. Expires Friday. Yeah, I think like as a software company, the biggest fear is you offer a Black Friday deal and you cannibalize some portion of your business. So it's hard to kind of like tiptoe that line. I think you did a good job by doing like an add-on where, you know, it's a new product and it's not gonna like pull a ton of customers initially. Did you force people to go annual with it?
We didn't force people to go annual with it, but what we did do, so what we're selling is like Spider credits. So we have this product called Spider that allows you to track every single ad that a competitor launches on Meta. And so we sell it in our base subscription. You get either 2 or 5 brands depending on what tier you're in. And then we sell expansion packs at 10, 20, 30, 50. And so we're discounting those expansion packs around 30%. If you get the highest one, it's 50% on annual. And we've thrown it out, but no one's bought it yet. It's like a $5,000 lifetime deal unlimited. And but one thing that we did do is we didn't offer any discounts on the lowest package. So
it's just there?
No, so for example, like in the app, you can select a 10 pack, but on the Black Friday deal, we only offered it for 20, 30, 50
right.
to get that. Cause it was like, if we're going to discount the 10 pack, it's almost just like, not worth it for us. And so, yeah, that's the way we did it. I think we did the discounting in a way that's pretty solid to like nudge people up. Like the only way to get 50% off is to get the highest Spider pack on annual. And so, yeah, I think we like positioned it pretty well for like a couple hours of work, and it's like brought in some cash. And I think there's a lot of people that wanted to expand this part of the product, but the thing with this upsell is like quickly like can eclipse the price of their base subscription. And so I think there's a lot of like hesitation there. It's, you know, you're used to paying X amount for this software company. And even if like it's completely valuable, there is like a hurdle to get over of being like, oh, this expansion is going to cost more than our base model.
Right.
So I think this is like a good step forward, and like the more people that are using it and expanding, you're just going to lead product led for it as a product. So I'm excited for it. How's your Black Friday going?
It's okay. I mean, I think in early years, it felt like such a crazy time because like we weren't used to doing high revenue numbers. And so when it came in, it was like amazing. I think we focused the business a lot on like locking in MRR deals. And when people go over on their plans, like we're more proactive about reaching out now. And so like most people are more fit into plans that fit them. But I think there are buyers that know we do Black Friday every year and just kind of like wait for it. So
what's the biggest contract that's come through from Black Friday right now? Do you know?
Right now it's $3,500.
Okay. Like annual? Like, or just like, cause
it's both credits,
okay,
but
cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's from someone that buys like relatively often, but we'll see. I mean, I was talking to someone on the team about this today where like, it's usually not the first email that gets them. Like you see it and then it's like, they forward it to someone else on their team, or like, should we do this or look into this?
They need to get a card from their boss.
Yeah, like stuff like that. So I think actually on Friday, when you nudge them on the actual day is when people are most...
We technically have the countdown timer going until Monday right now. Just to like push all the way
I'm not sure if we have that, but yeah, we usually go to the end of like Cyber Monday.
Right. It's kind of interesting for us too, because like a lot of our customers are like D2C brands. So like a lot of them are probably not even checking their email. They're like deep in the thick of it. I remember when I was running Black Friday for Nomadic Fabrics, like my old e-commerce brand. It was like my favorite time of the year, but it was also like the most miserable time of the year. Like a lot of D2C brands, they kind of make up all of their profit in November, December of the year. And so I remember the last Black Friday we had done before we sold the company is it didn't go well, and it was just like, wow, okay, like this really fucking sucks. And I remember like there was just so many changes happening to Facebook ads. Like you just weren't able to acquire customers cold anymore from Facebook on Black Friday without like a crazy CPA. And I remember one year what I did was I was just like, fuck, like we're actually getting fucked right now. This is horrible. And I was like, I kind of have to do something. And so what I did was I just went on our Nomadic Fabrics like Instagram account, which had like a couple 100,000 followers. And I just like started a live video, and I spent probably like 16 hours straight on live selling like QVC style.
That's hilarious.
So it was like, and it like brought in like so much money. Like, because what's cool about live at the time too is like when Instagram lives were like really new, so everybody was getting notifications that we were live. And what was funny is like we had this brand that was positioned to like middle American mothers, you know, and then it was just like this like 22-year-old kid hopping on being like, and then there was no like face to the brand. Like I didn't do any like founder led stuff, so it was kind of out of the blue. And yeah, we were giving like live discounts, being like, okay, Sharon, like, and so what we were doing is we were telling people to fill up their cart with what they wanted from the company, and then send a screenshot over DMs. And then we had someone on the DMs. And then what we would say is like, we're going to give you a custom discount only for your cart. And so it was like incredibly and it was just like their name with like a number behind it.
That's cool.
And so it was just like, we're like, okay, Sharon from fucking Wisconsin. And she would just like fill up her cart with like $500 worth of stuff. And then based on like how much they were ordering, we would just be okay. And we would give them like a custom discount. And it worked really well. And that was before like all of these live shopping apps kind of popped up.
Yeah, that's what I was. First of all, I love QVC. Like,
QVC is crazy.
It is so funny to watch. One of my friends, like we sit and watch QVC because it's like they are slinging the shittiest products. Like we saw one for like a ladder that they were like, oh my God, this is incredible. And it was like, this is an angle of something before, and this is an angle of the photo I took while on the ladder. It's like, yeah, we know ladders are like higher than the ground. So it's like, it's just so funny. They're like their sales tactics, and it's like the same thing over and over again. But have you seen that like Chinese, like this, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like QVC. It's like a live shopping thing where it's this Chinese girl and she pulls up products for no joke 3 seconds. Dude, the video is so funny. A box comes up, she quickly opens it, holds up like a dress, throws it back in the box, goes next item, and she's like,
and there's just like hours. Links in the chat.
And it's just like it's linked, and it's like if you like that, you click, and I guess people just like sit and watch, and it's just like just seeing whatever they choose to put in.
I've heard this. So when I was actually at Tony Robbins, they had one lady there that was like speaking as like one of the speakers of like success stories of people who went to go see Tony. And it was like this woman, I can't remember her name. I was like, I don't know who this person is, but the whole like stadium like erupted. It's like this big makeup woman.
Okay.
And she was trying to get on QVC for a while. And so she actually had a pretty cool story of like QVC like it was like this one guy that was running kind of new product QVC that kept denying her. And then he ended up moving on, and then she got in. And she was just like, it's crazy. Like you have to front all of your inventory. So it's like, we didn't have cash. We had to front load like 10,000 units. And then you have to like figure out what you're going to say and all that kind of stuff. And then what she was saying, and she's like, oh, and then I got there in the day of like my QVC presentation. And then they told her that if you're not hitting the sales numbers to like, if you're not trending to sell out at like 1 minute, 2 minute, 3, whatever it is, they cut you and they'll just like take it off. So it's like, if you don't come out hot, like they actually just move on to the next thing. And she ended up selling out, which was really cool. And she had this kind of really cool full circle moment where she ended up hiring that guy that kept denying her. When she got in after he had left, he like now works for her. Which is like a smart, pretty cool, pretty cool story. But yeah, it's awesome hearing like, because it is like we think about these like digital brands and stuff like that, but there are still like these juggernauts of distribution that I think will also be replaced by something.
You're right.
And so I think it's interesting to think about all of these
like what is the next
tactics.
QVC?
What is the next QVC? I think it is going to be like TikTok or like live shopping through one of these platforms. because I think product discovery is like an interesting thing. Like I'm not a massive consumer. Like I don't like buying things. I like buying the best thing. But I think a lot of people just like buying things.
Right.
So
I like buying things.
you like buying things. Watching you on Instagram is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. Like I remember when I was running Facebook ads and we would look at customer journeys, and then I would find these like people that would be like, viewed one ad, visit site for 35 seconds, spent $1,000. And I used to think like, who the fuck is this person? And then I met you and I realized, oh, like you actually don't open up Instagram without purchasing something.
I buy a lot. I actually just bought something off an Instagram ad today.
Yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying. You don't open up Instagram without buying something.
No, I do. So it's funny when you said the full circle thing, it made me think. So I was listening to a story of, I think it was Sony, and Sony put out like their first camera, and they had this guy that I guess was like very passionate. I should find it and like research it for a future episode, but they found this guy that's like super passionate about photography, and he would basically just mail Sony like so much feedback, like hey, this I don't like how this button is here or whatever. They end up hiring him as literally a full-time, what's the word? Like when you give negative feedback, like a full-time critic. Okay. So he's just like Sony's full-time critic. And he ended up through that job, knowing the product like so intimately and looking into the product so intimately, he ends up becoming the CEO of Sony one day.
Have you ever, do you know what Sony's first product ever was? If you had to guess?
If I had to guess, assuming it's not a camera, I don't know, something for audio, maybe like.
You're absolutely wrong.
Okay.
Sony's first product was a rice cooker.
Really?
That is like,
that looks like a sauna bowl.
It's literally like a wooden bowl that plugs into some janky electrical outlet, and it was a rice cooker. Sony's first product was a rice cooker.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like it's like an amazing brand that's like built so much, and now it's like a massive company that has some of these media and
some of these. I saw a TikTok that was like talking about Yamaha, and it's like those like fake board meetings. It's like, okay guys, like what are we gonna make? And then one guy's like, oh, we're gonna do like the fastest motorcycles, like sport bikes in the world. And they're like, okay, good, I like it, I like what we're thinking, like what else are we gonna make? And some other guy's like, pianos. And they're like, yes.
I think what's cool about these companies that are older companies, they're larger and they're completely vertically integrated, is that their competency actually isn't always like product and stuff like that. It's like actually like manufacturing and engineering. Yeah. And so it's pretty cool like seeing these like massive companies be like, okay, yeah, their competency is actually just making things. Right. Like the design, the product is kind of easy. Like when you hear like Elon talk about the biggest problems with Tesla, it's not actually design. It's not coming up with how to make the car work. It's like manufacturing and affordability. And so, yeah, it's kind of cool.
Speaking of that, I was watching a video on like what Elon does differently in all of his companies. Mm-hmm. And the biggest common element was that he brings everything in-house, and like it basically showed what a Tesla would cost if he wasn't like manufacturing like the batteries or like all these individual components. And same with like SpaceX, which is kind of, I don't know, just an interesting thought, because like the kind of conventional wisdom is like just do your core competency and like you don't make your own batteries, you're like a car company. But he kind of flips that on its head, which is obviously incredibly difficult. But
I think there's like we can make a connection to like what you and I have been talking about and going over recently. And it was that like we've had like a lot of failures in terms of like outsourcing with like agencies and stuff like that. And I think like the agency idea often, like if you're trying to do like a specific thing, like it's called SEO, let's call it whatever. And you're like, okay, these guys know what they're doing, we're going to plug it into their system. But the issue is that often like the agency doesn't have like, for example, like the domain expertise or like know the exact nuances of your business. And so although like the beginning, it might seem like easy, turnkey and cheap, it's like you kind of eventually hit like ceilings. And so I've been like really focusing and thinking there's this section, like, there's this part of our business or there's this new channel we want to like use. I've been looking at agencies and external support as this isn't how we're going to like fulfill this solution. This is just how we're going to accelerate knowledge. But then at the end of the day, the best case scenario is you bring it in house and like you have someone that knows the nuances of your customer, your business, and is like fully like knows everything about it. And then they're just acting on this like one channel. And so,
yeah, it's like the nuance, and obviously they're just not going to care as much. Like every agency, like you have a call coming up, you notice all of a sudden they're like getting work done like 2 days before. Right. Like it's just like always going to be that way. And it's like, they're just not going to care as much as someone in-house. So I think, like you get the agency, you see what they're doing, you see what worked, and you see like if this was done better, like this would work. And then you try to build that in-house.
For sure. And I think something that I've just been thinking about recently is if it's worth hiring an agency for. And so the idea of like is that you're kind of buying fractional time of people.
Right.
So if it's worth buying fractional time of people and it's going to be something that works, then it also is worth buying full time of people. Right? Like if it's going to work, then there's no reason for it to be fractional. Like if it's going to work, that means it can scale. That means there can be like more value extracted with like more time.
Yeah. It depends what it is. Like, let's say it's Google Ads. Like, do you need to spend 40 hours a week running Google Ads for like a small software company? Like, definitely
not. But that means that you could have someone that understands your Google Ads working on another part of your business. And then the Google Ads are completely aligned with whatever else like they're working on, whether it's like content or SEO or like supporting other areas. Interesting to look about or think about. In terms of like, we were talking about Instagram advertising. So I sent you an Instagram ad this weekend and I was just like, how cool is this? And I think both of us spend money on convenience quite a bit. And I got this Instagram ad for gas delivery. And I was just like, wow, I fucking want this. As in like they come, they fill up your gas tank wherever it's parked and then leave. Especially like in Toronto where like gas stations are far and few between. I was just like, this is an amazing idea. I just don't know how they're going to make this work. Because I went to their Instagram profile and it costs $8 for like a one-time gas delivery. And then if you have a subscription, it's $24 a month. And that gives you like weekly.
Is the cost of the gas higher? I feel like it must be.
It's got to be. You have to think. You'd have to think that it's higher.
Or at least they're getting some kind of a discount, like the same as what the gas station makes plus the $8.
Well, I'm curious like how much gas stations make on gas, like what their margins are on like whoever they're buying it from. Potentially this company is getting the same discount that the gas stations are getting, but they're not. They don't have property tax, they don't have maintenance of the building and all that kind of stuff, so they actually might have more vig on the gas than
So I thought you sent that to me because I had mentioned it to you before.
No.
Okay, so I've actually thought of this.
Okay.
I wish I had talked about it on the pod, but when I was living in like a condo, I was like, one person could come with a gas tank and just fill up all these, like especially in a condo building where like if you signed up the building, maybe maybe there is no even like extra, just that vig on the gas is enough. Right. If you're doing a whole building, it could be a lot. Go drive into someone's house, like I don't know if that's going to be worth it for $8.
I mean, their ads, I don't even know where they're based out of, but their ads were like in suburban neighborhoods, and that's where it didn't make sense to me. I was just like, okay, you're going to drive for $8, like that's less than an Uber Eats delivery.
Right.
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's working. It's called Juiced Fuel. I'm sure there's like a bunch of these. I'm sure there's like some guy like selling some course on how to start up your own gas delivery business or something. Like this is the next power washing.
It's not a great business.
It's not a great business. I was just like, I kind of want this. This is great. I hate going to the gas station.
Yeah, no, I despise it.
Especially like now my truck's diesel. And so in Toronto, dude,
it's not all gas stations.
Not all gas stations have diesel, which like blew my mind. But I mean, like the one near my house does. So it's fine. But I hate going to the gas station.
Okay, Flowdesk is a company I came across. So I saw this tweet that was basically just saying like, hey, use Flowdesk for your email marketing. It's $39 a month for unlimited contacts. And anyone that's done email marketing knows like email marketing, it always scales up with contacts. It's just the way it is. And like, if you've got 100,000 contacts, you're going to spend at least $500 a month. And that's just how it is. So this company, it's a flat $39 a month. They are at $20 million of ARR in just 4 years, completely bootstrapped. 2 female founders, so I guess that's part of their like brand kind of. So it's 75% female company. But I was just like the undercutting is so common in like, I don't know, physical goods, like towels. There's always gonna be a cheaper towel company. But like with software like email marketing, I didn't like, somehow in my head I didn't even think it could be $39 a month for
right.
But yeah, it's software. There's no cost. Like, so I wonder what other.
I mean, there is a cost on email sending, unless they've built.
Is there?
Yes, dude. Like,
What?
like if you wanted, what do you mean?
What's the cost?
If you wanted to use, like if you built all of your sending infrastructure in house, like there's maintenance cost of your sending infrastructure. Like, haven't you went through all this with Wizza? Like, isn't like, for example, like, didn't you have to go through like $100,000 audit with Google? Like,
yes, we had to do an audit, but that's not a variable cost.
So there's no cost to send an email?
There's no cost. Well, the way we were doing it was through Gmail. It's not an email marketing platform.
Okay.
So I don't know for email marketing, but for cold email type, sending from your Gmail, no, there's zero cost. So it's actually a higher margin, despite the kind of like audit, security audit you have to go through. It's actually, you know, a higher margin business than leads were, because there are costs on that. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there are certain software tools that are just like known to be expensive.
I mean, they're known to be expensive, but I've used budget email marketing. Like you recommended to me once MailChat, and I tried that, and like,
yeah, that was not good.
You use it for like, you're like, oh, this is so good when I'm signing up, and then you realize that they have zero support. There's literally shit broken in the app, and they're missing like one feature where you're like, okay, like I can't actually do what I want to do because it's missing this feature.
You have to get the product right, because yeah, if
I always just back into it as well. It's like, I mean, I would never build a business like this because I've never found a lot of joy in making something cheaper. I find joy in like making something the best. And so like, if you have zero incentive to make it the best, you only have like, your only incentive is to make it cheaper, then like your attention is going to making it cheaper. So you're figuring out, okay, how do we cut costs? How do we, you know, acquire customers for cheaper? It's not actually going into like making a good product.
Yeah, unless you're I mean, could you not come at it at the same angle of making the best product possible, but not making it super expensive?
No, because then you have to hire the best designers. You have to hire the best engineers. It all costs money. Like it goes back in like, if everything could be free, like, you know what I'm saying? Like if everything could be free and could be the best, wouldn't that be great? Like, it's like, yeah, the answer is yes. But
yeah, it can't be free, but I just think there's a lot of opportunity in like, there's just overpriced SaaS out there.
I think there's overpriced SaaS, yes. I just don't know if saying our strategy, if you say that our strategy is to offer the budget solution, you are never going to end up with the best product. Like what is it? What is an example anywhere in the world where the budget solution is also the best product? Because if you have the best product,
Amazon.
What do you mean? What do you mean Amazon?
If I want to buy, I bought a scale on Amazon yesterday.
Okay.
It was the best place for me to buy a scale and the cheapest.
The best place to buy, but was it the best scale? Or you mean, but like Amazon's business is a little bit different. Like what other companies do you spend a subscription on to then purchase from them? Like the only other option is like Costco, which is like the opposite of best product. It's like bulk.
Right.
I'm sure, like there's no example where the best version is also the cheapest.
No, I think Amazon is an example of that.
How is Amazon is a marketplace of sellers?
Yes, but it's the best.
Their best value. There's a lot of times when it's the best value.
No, but it's like, it's the fastest, it's the cheap, like their product, or like, let's say the Kindle is probably the cheapest e-reader than like an iPad. I mean, it's different function. It's hard to compare.
It's a different fucking product. It doesn't exist.
It's hard to compare.
Just admit that if you're going to have the cheapest version of a product, like you're not going to be able to compete with the people. And if you're running a business and you're actively in the driver's seat and you say, we have the best product, why would you keep the prices as low as possible? There's no incentive to that. If you find yourself on like looking at a competitor matrix and you're like, we are the best product and the cheapest,
right?
And you're like, how do I grow the business? It's like, oh, you should just raise your prices,
right?
Because that means even if you raise your prices, people are going to stay with you because you also have the best product,
right? Well, it all depends where you're at. I think like if you're trying to right now figure out something to start, especially you want a software, it's a good place to start. These girls, like 2 girls got 20 million ARR in 4 years.
Yeah, no, it's that's awesome.
And
would you rather have
they can say, okay, you know, we're not the best email marketing tool right now. We're going to build the best email marketing. So they can choose to kind of go in that direction. And now, you know, making $20 million a year can fund tons of great engineers.
Or it's funding support for like 100,000 customers that are worth nothing.
Maybe.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Who knows?
Like maybe. Like, I mean, they got to 20 million ARR bootstrap. That's an amazing feat.
Right.
I just don't know if it's like, oh, like this is the playbook. Make the cheapest version of everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's many playbooks.
There's many playbooks. Again, like I think if I were to think about what I would want to do, it's like I've never wanted to be the budget solution for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like that just does not seem fun.
So okay, so here's what I've been thinking for a little while, and it kind of relates to another point, and it's kind of in line with this, which is like before I always wanted to like start a business to make money and like make profit. Like that was like the goal, was like profit. We've talked about it, not on the podcast because it's going to be in stealth, but I'm thinking of starting something new. And I've realized now, as I guess I've had like a success in business, so, you know, kind of like different motivations. What I really want is like a big business. Mm-hmm. Like I really don't care about like the profit right now. Like I want to create something that does like $100 million a year in revenue, which is just like an interesting shift. And I feel like that's like a shift of like just enjoying like business and wanting to get as many like points as possible.
Yeah.
Not really caring about as much like how much like I make from it, but just like I want to build the biggest thing I possibly can.
I think that's true, but I would say like a lot of that perspective just comes from being like, I don't really need any more money.
Maybe.
You know what I'm saying?
Maybe.
Like if you had like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
but
I'm not saying you don't want more money, but I'm saying like, it's like if you go from saying like, I need money to do X, Y, and Z into going, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And like, I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, then it's just comes down to, okay, I want like a bigger business for like impact or like ego or just like a challenge. Like, okay, I've summited one mountain. Okay, what's the other mountain? It's okay, $100 million a year. It's just like, again, like 2 different playbooks and like 2 different like journeys to go on. I've always respected, but never wanted to be like the person who's able to have that perspective while being broke. Like, I don't think either of us are like that person. Like that's like a whole different breed of person where they're like, I'm broke and I don't care about money and I just want to build the biggest business. Like those are the guys that like build the biggest businesses.
Right.
I mean, there's outliers for all of those things, but I've always looked at those people and been like, okay, dude, like I respect it, but like I don't want to be, that's not me.
Yeah. Like, I do think most business people, like it gets a lot of like, you know, the classic kind of story is like someone like that, you know, lives on the floor for like 5 years, doesn't spend any money and then becomes like wildly successful. But I do think like if you look at most successful business people, they do spend a lot of money personally as well. Yeah,
for sure. And I think also those like stories are like survivorship biases. I think there's a lot of, at the end of the day, I would always bet on an entrepreneur that's been like, oh, I had like 5 profitable businesses first, and now I'm taking my moonshot.
100%.
I'm living a good lifestyle. Like I have nothing to worry about. Then like there is something you said about like hunger, scrappy, but it's just like there's a lot of people that are hungry and scrappy that literally just never get off the floor.
Right.
I think that's actually most. It's
right.
99.9%.
Right.
So, yeah, there's like those weirdos that like actually want to suffer for like, not that they don't want no reward, like they want to win and like they want, you know, they're competitive on a nature that they just don't derive as much value in the moment from lifestyle increases or like things like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think so I would get excited if I found a way that I could produce steel at 20% of the cost that steel normally is.
Okay.
Let's just say random, boring.
Stevie Steels.
Random, boring business. Just offering a lower cost. That would excite me. Just the same as like making a better steel would. So I think like I really just want to build like the business that can make the most money possible. Not necessarily the best steel, which might sound like whatever, but like that is like both of those things it excites me to make a better product because I think it'll help in the long term that business make more money. It's helpful to lower the price of the product because I think in the long term that benefits the business as well. So
I don't agree.
You don't agree? Like
I just if you were to say to me that my main contributing value day to day is like in a spreadsheet versus like in a lab, I'd be like, okay, like I'd want to be in the lab even if it made less money rather than a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, no, like if and I don't know, I'm very visual with like I can like when you talk about like an outcome, I have a complete picture in my head of what that looks like. And it's like, when I look at all of my shortcomings or failures in business up until now, they happen from things like logistics or operations or finances. The things in which like end up being really, really good are like, or things that have worked out really well are like new ideas, 0 to 1. And so and like maybe that's even just like a little bit of like a limiting belief of thinking, oh, that's just not the kind of business. But it also, like what you're saying, it doesn't excite me. When you're like, oh, I can make this type of steel for this much. And would I want the money? Yes. Like if you're like, hey, give me this much money and I'll return this much, I'd be like, yeah, that's great.
Right.
But then I'd also want to just like spend my time in like an art studio being like, oh, I'm just gonna make some cool shit.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, kind of in line. I was watching a video from Sam Ovens. I'm curious what you think about this because we were talking about bootstrapping this week. And I always go back to his videos, even though he hasn't made a video in like 4 years, but I just love his stuff. And he was basically saying like, yeah, profits are actually a bad thing. You have to pay tax on them, so it's not as efficient. It's obviously money not being invested back into the business. Same thing when we were considering raising, like same kind of like VC feedback of like, oh, do you not like, that must mean you don't have like any good channels, and like what you have now is like the most you can get. And what you really want to optimize for is like long-term future cash flows. And that's like the only thing that matters.
See, but I've had a conversation with other people about this specifically, and what they said is like, you also need to know like what game you are playing, and and then when you're talking to specific people, you need to know, okay, what are their incentives based that is informing the thing that they're telling you. And so a VC, for example, often will make a lot of their money on your next round or something. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so their incentive is saying, oh, you should be investing all your money because like they're making their money on your next round. Now, if you're running a business where you're thinking, okay, this is probably just going to get acquired by private equity, like having profits distributed to founders and investors is not a bad. They're like, oh, this is great. This actually this is a company that has like free cash flow. And so it's like to a million people, some things are good and some things are bad, and they mean different things.
Right.
And so I think it's just like understanding like, and it can change over time, right? Like at year one, like having profit can be really great because like that means you actually can then invest like safely in the next year without having to raise capital and like dilute your cap table and whatever. And then it's like, but if you're coming up on a sale where you're getting a multiple on revenue, not EBITDA, it's like that's one version. Right. And there's also like if you were selling in 2020, 2021, you shouldn't have any EBITDA. You're getting all your multiple on revenue. And like now it's like, okay, maybe you have to sell to private equity. Right. If you have zero EBITDA, you're fucked. Like you're getting a multiple in EBITDA. So it's like there's an answer that completely is true about each solution around that. And I think it's also just like at the end of the day, you built a business to make the choice that you want to make.
Right.
So what excites you? Just like raising a bunch of VC money and like just growing like wildfire, and like potentially never making $1 and then it burning out. It's like that. If that like seems exciting to you, then like that's exactly what you should do. But if you're like, oh, I wouldn't want that as an outcome, then you probably shouldn't do it.
So. Yeah, that's fair.
But your plan is to raise for this new thing.
Yeah, plan is to raise for the new thing. I think it requires it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I also just think you should like.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah, it's a good notch in the belt.
Yeah. Bret Taylor. So Bret Taylor was the guy that was supposed to be CEO of OpenAI, and then Sam Altman came back.
He got rugged.
He got rugged. But this guy has a crazy story. So this guy created Google Maps. He created Friend Feed, which sold to Facebook, which I didn't know what that was. He then became the CTO of Facebook. Then he created a company called Quip, which sold to Salesforce for $750 million. They made him co-CEO of Salesforce. Apparently, they just did the Quip acquisition. Like, their primary motivation was to get Bret Taylor.
Wow.
Which is like, it's like
insane.
a $750 million acquire. Yeah, the biggest acquire ever. Chairman of the board of Twitter, on the board of Shopify. He created the like button. He spearheaded Salesforce's acquisition of Slack. He apparently forced Elon to buy Twitter. Like, he was the one that forced the deal. I guess he's chairman of Twitter. And he's 43 years old. What a series of accomplishments.
Yeah. Was your point here to just make me feel like shit?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you got time. But he, I was reading, like, people apparently described him as like 100 times more effective than an average engineer, which, like, I don't even know how that's possible. And apparently one weekend people went back into like Google office, and over the weekend he had rewritten the entire Google Maps code to just make it like
incredibly fast,
way faster. I don't know.
Something
like
over a bit.
But yeah, I don't know.
How would you define 100 times more effective? If you had to think about the engineers at Wizza and you had to dream of a world in which they're 100 times more effective, what attributes, qualities would you attribute to having 100x on an engineer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. When I think of 100x, I just think of like 100 times more output. So like, how would that? But
100x more output in the wrong direction is 100x. You know what I'm saying? Like, speed.
Yeah,
is one thing. The way some things that I'm thinking about is like, often what happens, I think, when you go to build a new product is like the product person, their job is to think about every nook, cranny, and like variable, or like the impacts on the product. And then what happens is somewhere around 75% of the way you realize you built yourself into a corner, or you're like, fuck, we didn't think about this, or like, how is this going to affect this part of the product? I think when I think about a 100x engineer, it's like there's like that gap of time that you would have wasted, and then you have to like circle back. It's like having that level of vision that can even like think past the product people and be like, oh, we should change this before we start anything, because, and it's almost like it's actually not accelerating from 0. It's being able to look at 75 and then adjust like your trajectory at 0 to make sure that all of their output is going the right direction. Because I think like wasted time is actually the thing that matters, and not necessarily how fast you're moving in it. Like, if you just move in the perfectly right direction, make the perfect right, you actually can move pretty slow.
Right.
If you just make the right decision.
Right.
And you never make a mistake.
Right.
That's what, when I was like reading this, I was like, I think that's
that type of guy. I mean, yeah. I mean, personally, if you look at his like track record, 43 years, that's like 20 years in the workforce. That's like,
so, and he's just an engineer, or he's like built companies?
Yeah, well, he was co-CEO of Salesforce. He founded that company Quip, which sold for $700 million.
Okay.
He's doing pretty well.
Yeah. He's got a couple bucks.
But so that kind of, when I was just like reading about him a bit more, led me down the rabbit hole of Mark Benioff, founder of Salesforce. I didn't know that much about him. I know he's like kind of like a quirky guy or whatever.
Okay.
But to get Salesforce off the ground, he has some amazing stories. So in Salesforce's first year, there was a conference from a company called Siebel happening, which was owned by Oracle. So I guess Salesforce was like Oracle's direct competitor at a time where like people were saying like the cloud was like the new thing, and Salesforce was like on the cloud.
What do you think about the cloud? Do you think it's a stick?
I think it's got some legs. So Salesforce, like I guess that's why their logo is still a cloud.
Okay.
But they were like this like, cloud CRM instead of like desktop software, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't really alive back then.
Okay.
So anyway, there's a Siebel conference happening, And it's the year that Salesforce launches. So he hires a ton of fake protesters to stand outside, and they're holding these signs that are like these X'd out like software, and they're yelling like, the internet is neat, software is obsolete. which is just hilarious. So he has this massive gang of protesters outside, and then he has a fake TV news crew that he hires to like be like covering it. So it's getting all this buzz, and they have like Salesforce logos and whatever. Siebel ends up calling the police, and it just got a ton of buzz around like Salesforce's launch.
Yeah.
Thought that was like a hilarious, guerrilla marketing tactic. Then Siebel's having another conference in Cannes. Is that how you pronounce it?
Cannes.
Canes. So Siebel's having a conference in Cannes. What he does is to get to Cannes, you have to fly into Nice and then get a taxi. So he rents every single taxi.
I've heard Nice. This one. This one's fucked.
This one's amazing. He rents every single taxi in Nice, fills them with Salesforce sales reps, basically. And in the 45-minute drive, they basically just pitch them on Salesforce the whole time, which is just genius.
That's a genius idea. That makes me think of, there's a story about Jesse Itzler when he bought Marquis Jet or started Marquis Jet. He was like, okay, I need to like now go and sell. So essentially Marquis Jet was like a fractional jet ownership company. And so he had built this, I think he had built some sort of relationship with NetJets where they were leasing him his jets, and then he was selling fractional time on the jets through cards. And so the way that he got his first customer was he had heard about TED, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go to TED conference. Like these are a bunch of elites, people with money, people that would fly private. And so he gets to TED, and then he's like, oh fuck, you need a ticket to get into TED. And like to get actually into a real TED conference, you can't just buy one. Like you have to be invited. And so he's like stirring around being, okay, well, I fucking came all the way here. I think it was in like Palo Alto or something. And he's thinking, okay, how do I get in front of people? And so what he notices is that there was like a coffee shop right next to the TED conference. And then in the morning, every single person was going into this, I think maybe it was a Starbucks, a coffee shop, and getting a coffee and like a muffin or a bagel. And so what he did the next morning is he went into that coffee shop and he purchased every bagel and muffin that they had. Oh, you're just getting mad at the way I'm saying bagel. Fuck you. If you haven't watched the last episode, at the end, apparently I say bagel wrong. And so he goes in and he purchases every bagel and muffin. Bagel. And so the next day he's got this box of muffins and the B word. And when someone, he'll just be at a side table. And then when someone goes up, he's like, hey, can I get a blueberry muffin? Like, oh, we're actually out. And people are like, what the fuck? And then he'll go up to that person and be like, hey, I heard you wanted a blueberry muffin. I actually have a few. And I can't remember anyway, he closed one deal, and it was the first customer for Marquis Jet. And apparently they did business for like 5 years through that strategy. So that's fun. We were actually with my team, we did this kind of like jam about, my like question was, how do we become the most known software company in Toronto? And then we just like had all of these ideas, and a lot of them were fun. And so we're planning on doing actually a couple of these. Like one of the ideas I had, it's not as good in the winter, was that I was going to just like do like a TikTok. So it's like also like, how do you do these guerrilla marketing tactics, but then use digital to like amplify them?
Yeah.
And so one of the ideas I had was just, I could like take the Suron, it's like electric dirt bike I have, and try to drive and knock on the door of every single agency in Toronto. And like, that's like a TikTok series, like, hey, I'm going to try to break into every agency in Toronto. And it's just like a daily series. And then you also think of agencies, like they like exposure too.
Right.
And so like, it actually could be like this thing where like agencies start calling you up and being like, hey, come do the thing with me. And then I was thinking like another cool idea about that. There's this like TikTok content trend where people who like, it's like this fake shit where people go up like, hey, can I see the inside of your apartment?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, can I go see the inside of your office? Like, where do you work? And it's like, oh, I work at Cossette, like come see our office.
Right.
And, like all the cool little things that they have in their office. I thought that could be like actually be like a pretty solid, just like finding the time to like do something like that.
Yeah.
And like carving it out. But that shit's like super fun.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Another story kind of like that I came across was I mean, this is less like guerrilla marketing, more just like self-funding. But apparently Airbnb, they couldn't get like angel investment.
Okay.
So their idea was basically to sell like these political cereals. Have you heard about this?
No.
So they made this cereal called like Obama O's.
Oh, I've seen this. Yeah.
Yeah. And they had some other ones like McCain something. Apparently those didn't sell and they were like just eating those for like months while they were building the company. But Obama O's did really well and it got them like their first 60 grand to like start building Airbnb.
Wow. They just sold cereal.
Yeah, just cereal that was like O's and the packaging was like Obama O's.
Damn, that's cool. One thing I tried to do this week, I tried buying a website.
Okay.
So there's one other website. I guess I'll say. So one of the websites we're trying to buy is called swipefile.com. So we have like a
or domain.
We're trying to buy the website.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Which the domain would come alongside the website.
Right. No, I wasn't sure what you meant, but yeah. Okay.
And so this guy named like Neville Medora, he has like this like copywriting course and all this kind of stuff. And he has like swipefile.com, gets a decent amount of traffic, but we have a product called Swipefile. So I'm like, okay, it'd be cool to own swipefile.com. It's like, again, it's like copywriting inspiration, advertising inspiration, as like it's pretty much his own swipe file that he's like built like on a WordPress site or something, and it's got like a ton of backlinks. So they're going to try to buy this, and so I sent him a message to like Sam Parr in Hampton, and then I was like, hey, like because he knew Neville, I'm like, can you make the intro? And we were just like way apart on like numbers, so it didn't work out. But this just like leads into like the next thing. Have you heard that Andrew Tate bought University.com?
No,
you haven't?
No.
Okay, so I can't remember where I heard about this. It was either like an interview or like someone mentioned it on like a TikTok or something. But right now, if you go to university.com, it's like Andrew Tate selling his like Hustlers University thing or whatever, which I just think is like the funniest thing in the entire world. It couldn't be like the furthest thing from like what university as the word means.
$49 a month.
And if you like go to the website, it's just like this horrible, like it's actually a funny video. And I'm sure he's like printing cash, so like good on him. But I just thought it was like funny that he was like able to acquire a domain like this, and it's just like hilarious to think that this guy selling this like $49 like drop shipping course where he also says he's going to teach you at AI just how to use ChatGPT, like owns university.com. And it just made me think like this is obviously like crushing it for him. And so I looked up the previous sales of this domain, so he paid over $1 million for it.
For sure.
So because previously sold, so VPN.com sold it to Tsunami VR in 2020 for 1.1 million. So I'm assuming he paid more than 1.1 million for it. But it just made me think that like I feel like online education is like such an easy play. Like it seems like so much fast cash, but it seems like it's like a hard thing to sustain. Like a lot of these online education platforms, it seems like they have this like massive rise and then they kind of like plateau or like you never hear about them anymore. Like the one that comes to mind is like Masterclass as well. Like I don't know how the business is doing. I heard in a podcast recently, again, I couldn't find anything online about this, but Grant Cardone was mentioning how he was trying to buy Masterclass, and he's like, oh, they might be going into bankruptcy soon or something like that. And it's just like
spending huge money.
They're spending like huge money, like obviously like acquiring like the biggest names of every like top industry across the world. But it's just like an interesting thing I'm trying to think of like an online education platform that's just like continued to scale, and like maybe the ones that continue to scale are the ones you never hear about.
Well, I feel like maybe like marketplaces
like Skillshare
more so, because then there's always like fresh content. But yeah, like I'd mentioned Sam Ovens earlier, he built that I think to like 20 million a year,
right?
And it kind of all came crashing down at some point. Masterclass, it's interesting because like they cover such a wide range of things, but like,
have you ever had a Masterclass subscription?
I have.
I liked it when I had it. I mean, to be fair, like the issue with them is that it's not actually a masterclass. It's literally like an interview.
It's watered down. You can tell like they brought these guys in and they're like, here's what we made. Like, is there anything you want to add? Or like they sat down for like 3 interviews and then built the content based on that. Now they're just reading it from a teleprompter. It's but I did Gordon Ramsay's. I learned how to break down a chicken.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I did the negotiation one.
Chris Voss.
Yeah, Chris Voss one. I did the chess one, and CEO of Disney, where the fuck his name is?
Bob Iger.
Okay, we got the name. We got the Rolodex over here. And then I also did There was one more. Oh, Starbucks CEO. What's his name? Big guy.
It's Howard Schultz.
Howard Schultz. Yeah. So I did those ones, and it was good. But now I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to spend an hour like hours sitting down like listening to. They're essentially podcasts. Like you'd learn way more from a podcast, and it's just like a one-way thing of them just like speaking. So it's like, there's no clarification. There's
I mean, it's probably good. Like the Chris Voss is probably like I read his book a few years ago, but like when they have a full book with like everything outlined, like I'm sure the course is like solid because it's just like trimmed down version of that. But yeah, like why do I need to sit there and watch him like explain it like and watch his face?
Yeah. And they're also just like overproduced. Like sometimes I feel like when you overproduce something, it just like dilutes the information. Like often the best content is like a Sam Ovens video where it's like he's standing in front of a whiteboard and messing up and then clarifying himself and
dude,
talking about his babies.
I was watching one today, which we've talked about a lot, but it's called like Uncoding the Billionaire's Mindset. And I'm just like, man, this video just wouldn't fly these days. Like the YouTube algorithm would just shut it down. He's on a whiteboard and then he's like, oh shit, how am I going to fit more here? And it's like, he's out of space. He's like, what if I go here? And he like goes to the side and he's like, he's really trying to like figure out how to like even fit it on the whiteboard for like 2 minutes. And I'm just like watching this and I'm like, but yeah.
Is there any like video or book that like stands out in your mind as being like a very transformative or eye-opening book or video or like
I don't know, there's a few that come to mind. I watched one video, I think it was from someone at Intercom that was like just a keynote. For me, keynotes really resonate the most, and it was just like a 20-minute keynote, and it was basically explaining how like it's that whole jobs to be done framework. And it was explaining competitors. And I don't know, I always just like think about this, but like they did a research study for Snickers and they were trying to figure out how to sell more Snickers bars. And they were like, oh, our competitors of Snickers is like Kit Kat, Milky Way, chocolate bar, like whatever, these other chocolate bars. And then what they did in the research is they went to a gas station and interviewed people that were buying Snickers and said like, what were you considering? If not a Snickers, what would you have gotten? And what they found was like, it was never any of the other chocolate bars. And what it actually was like an apple or like a Starbucks shake thing from the thing or like a granola bar. And what they found was like, yeah, the way that people buy Snickers is actually like they're hungry and they're on the go and they have a meeting. Like when they ask them like what like job to be done. And so their competitors were like an apple, a banana, a drink, like, and so it's like you don't look at your competitive landscape of like who has the most similar product. It's who fits the job that your customer is trying to be doing. So like your biggest competitor might actually just be like Google Docs, and not like these other competitors you might think of. And so like that's always stuck in my mind as pretty transformative. And that's actually where Snickers, through that study, they came up with "You're not you when you're hungry," which is what they still use.
I like those commercials; they're good.
Yeah, then I think they've been running it for like 20 years.
Snickers are my chocolate bar of choice.
Yeah,
I like it.
It depends.
I've never thought about having an apple or a Snickers though. To be
no,
fair. No, it's like I want a Snickers.
Have you bought do you buy Snickers?
Not often. I'm not like gluttonous. But like if I'm like on a road trip and I'm like I'm gonna get a chocolate bar, it's 100% gonna be a Snickers.
Yeah,
like 100%.
You're not you're hungry. Chocolate bar? I don't know. I think I
feel like aren't you a candy guy?
Actually, my favorite chocolate is Bueno. You know those like.
I know exactly what you're saying. I don't even know what to say.
Why?
It's the most insane thing I've ever heard.
Why?
It's the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life.
Why?
It's just insane.
It's amazing, and you know why? Because you have so many ways to eat it. You can break it off and just eat one. You can break it and then remove the flooring.
Okay.
And then eat it. You can remove the flooring and just get like the inside and then eat it. There's like, you've got so much variation in this pack.
I do that with Ferrero Rochers.
You do what?
So the Ferrero Rocher, there's a bunch of ways to eat it. One, you could just go pop it in your mouth, bite down,
that's
go
how I eat
all
it.
the way. or you can try to remove it layer by layer. So you try to get the nuts off first, and then you try to get the chocolate, and then you try to get the wafer, and then you suck off the internal chocolate, and then you just get left with the hazelnut. And sometimes you're very good at. Don't laugh at me as if you're not talking about dissecting a fucking Bueno, which is the most unpopular chocolate bar in the entire fucking world.
Not.
Next to Three Musketeers, it goes Bueno, Three Musketeers, and then some other fucking bullshit. Like absolute shit. Not shit. Like it's just like I would never go in like I'm gonna get a fucking Bueno.
It's amazing. You ever de-skin a grape?
Oh, I've shown you the de-skin grape thing.
I've been doing that since I was like 2.
Dude, I'm telling you, I was with you when I showed you how to de-skin a grape, and it's the most amazing thing in the entire world. And the one thing I had thought was like, if I was ever a billionaire, the thing I would have is like someone de-skinning grapes.
Yeah.
100%.
Imagine that job. Yeah, but they have to like bite it. Like their mouth is all over
they have
it.
tools. Have you never seen those little? They have these little tools that go on your thumb because de-skinning grapes is like a thing that they'll do in kitchens, and like there is a tool for it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like it kind of looks like a sharp little mini spoon that kind of like ASMR. But yeah, I don't know what else you got. Anything else?
No. Do you have any books or things that stood out?
I mean, this is like super cliche, but like 4-Hour Work Week was like a big one. 4-Hour Work Week, Unleash the Power Within, Tony Robbins. 4-Hour Work Week was cool because it showed me that you could just like build like small businesses in a way. Like was like I actually remember when I started reading it, I can't remember if I was still in university or just dropped out, but I would take the GO train home to Brantford. And I remember like when I first started reading it and like I like read the first page on the GO train, and then I was just like in the car and I just like read the entire thing. And I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard in my entire life, that like you could have these like VAs around the world like running your entire business, and like you could do like affiliate market. Like I was just like, wow, this is the most like eye-opening thing I've ever learned in my entire life.
Dude, I had the exact opposite experience. I remember hearing 4-Hour Work Week, 4-Hour Work Week, and similar. I was like in university and I was listening to the audiobook, and I was like, this is trash. Like I was like, how is this good? I was like, there's some cool ideas, but I was like, I don't know. It just felt so weird to me for a book to be like so specific with like these like.
I also think that like it was a refreshing thought for me that someone was so intentional about their life. Like it wasn't even like I wanted exactly what he had. It was just like, oh wow, this guy like thinks through every single part of his life. And I think at the time I was like trying to figure that out, and I was around like a lot of people that weren't doing that. And so part of it might have even been that like, okay, wow, this guy's so intentional. Everybody that's surrounding me is the opposite of intentional. They're literally just kind of like going with the flow. And so I think a lot of it was even just like resonating with like how intentional he was about the choices he made, and like how like much he was thinking through kind of the decisions, like what he spent his time doing and things like that. And I mean, to be fair, like the things that the book taught, I'm like the opposite of now. Like I just like work all of like it's like 4-hour sleep week, rather than that. But yeah, I think I never thought about like reflecting on it right now. So I think it was actually just like the intentionality, of just like choosing.
Yeah, kind of in that vein. I think the best thing I ever did for like myself personally was whenever I was working out. Like when I was younger, maybe like starting in grade 12, I would listen to like motivational soundtracks while I worked out, because I was already addicted to working out. So I was already there every day. And I don't know, I just think that like gave me so like, I think I had like definitely like a wanting for like to do like business, entrepreneurship, whatever. But I think that like fired me up and put me in. That's why I never liked the advice of like Gary V's like, oh, you have so much time. Like, it put me in such a state of like, you're in a rush. Like I used to listen to like Tony Robbins, like Les Brown, tons of these guys. And like, it was like, it put me in such a state of a rush that I was like, I can't wait till the end of university. Like I need to like go now.
Right.
So I think that just broadly was probably the best like thing I did for myself.
What's funny is I was like a very early listener of Gary Vee, and his messages changed so drastically. And if you actually reverse engineer what he's saying now, I think that it's a product of him trying to go broad rather than what he actually believes in a lot of ways. And so for him, it's like, those motivational speeches, like if if you show them to 99% of the population, people are like, wow, this is cringe. If you like show them to us, we're like, oh wow, this is this is like, take me to the beach, hold them underwater, like, you know, like that fucking one, hold me under the water, like honestly the best one. And so for him, like if you look at his old stuff, it was like very aggressive, like you fucking loser, like stop being lazy. And now he's just like this like nice guy or whatever. But it's like, did he wait a little bit later in life? Yes, but like the internet wasn't actually a thing, and so it's like he also like built like massive businesses, and it's just like he also lives the opposite of what he like preaches. And again, like I'm not hating like at all. I actually I like him. Like he's just like whatever. But I think that like a lot of his messaging is just like, how do I get the most shares? How do I make people feel the best about themselves? Right. Which if his goal is volume of impact, it's actually probably the best. Right. Like at the end of the day, it's way easier to like teach 100,000 people how to like make an extra 10 grand a year than it is, or like to motivate them to do that, than it is like density of impact, which is like motivate one person to like build a massive business, which is like the other side of the coin. Right. And so I just think he's just like looking at it as an opportunity. And like, I think his mission, if that is his mission, then it's like good. Like that's valuable to society. Right. But it's just like, doesn't resonate with me. Yeah. It's like people like if you could choose to get rich quick or get rich slowly, there's no reason, like there's not really a reason to get rich slowly. Like, there's no benefit to it, because at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, there's small examples of why you wouldn't want that to happen. Like if the value you're receiving isn't directly correlated to the work you're outputting, or like the value you're outputting, and you have like this, like if you got rich like with crypto, like that could have some like negative, but if you're building a business and you get rich quick, like you act like you still went down the path. So it's like no, 100%. All right, well, let's close it off. Close it there. Okay, all right, see you next week.